You were born in Egypt, 1350 BC. 2 lives possible here. Pick one. One wears gold, one carries stone. One eats roast duck, one eats scraps. One owns nothing, one owns everyone. Same river, same sun, different world. This is Pharaoh's day, and a slave's. Both start the same way, waking up. After that, everything splits apart. One path ends in eternity, one in dust. Let's follow both, hour by hour. What you find will surprise you. Pharaoh's freedom carried its own price. The slave's day held more than misery. Egypt, 1350 BC. The Nile just flooded. This flood decides who eats this year. Pharaoh Amenhotep wakes in a stone palace. Priests already wait outside his door. They believe he controls the sun itself. Across the river, a slave wakes too. His name isn't recorded anywhere in history. Egypt built pyramids. It rarely wrote his name. Historian Herodotus visited Egypt centuries later. He asked locals who built the pyramids. The answer surprised him completely. Not slaves in chains.
Paid workers. Egyptologist Mark Lehner confirmed this decades later. His team found a workers' village nearby. Bakeries, breweries, medical bandages, all found there. Workers ate beef and fish regularly, better food than most Egyptian farmers had. So who actually was enslaved in Egypt? Prisoners of war? Debtors? Convicted criminals? Not an entire race. Not permanently either. Some slaves earned wages. Some bought freedom. Our slave today works Pharaoh's grain fields. He was captured 3 years ago in Nubia. Now he belongs to a temple estate. Let's rewind. Both wake at sunrise. Pharaoh's room smells of imported cedar. Servants already stand ready with water. They wash him. He does nothing himself. Every motion of his day is scripted. Religious texts controlled his first breath awake. He must recite prayers before rising fully. Egyptians believed reality depended on this ritual. Skip the prayer, and chaos might return.
The slave's morning looks nothing like this. He splashes river water on his face. Breakfast is bread, onions, weak beer. Egyptian workers drank beer daily, even children. It was safer than the river water. Beer here was thick, more like soup. It supplied real calories for hard labor. Back at the palace, breakfast looks different. Roast duck, dates, honey cakes, wine. Tasters sample everything before Pharaoh touches it. Poison was a real fear at court. Pharaoh eats alone, mostly, in silence. Even meals reinforce his distance from others. The slave eats standing, fast, with others. Overseers don't allow long breaks for food. By mid-morning, Pharaoh moves to his court. Officials line up with problems to solve. Grain shortages, border disputes, temple funding. Pharaoh doesn't personally read most reports. Scribes read everything aloud for him. Quick pause, hit like, subscribe, we continue. Literacy in Egypt was rare, even for royals. Less than 1% of Egyptians could read.
Scribes held more daily power than expected. Meanwhile, the slave hauls water buckets uphill. Irrigation channels need constant manual refilling. The sun, by midday, reaches 40 degrees Celsius. No shade breaks unless the overseer allows it. Some estates did provide medical care though. Deir el-Medina records show paid sick leave. Workers there got days off when injured. Not all Egyptian labor was equally brutal. Royal tomb workers were skilled, valued craftsmen. Field slaves and quarry slaves had it worse. Our slave falls into that harder category. Back at court, Pharaoh hears a temple dispute. 2 priesthoods fight over land ownership rights. Pharaoh's word here is treated as divine law. Whatever he says next cannot be appealed. This absolute power came with hidden constraints. Historian Toby Wilkinson studied these constraints closely. Pharaoh had to perform Ma'at, cosmic order. Every action was judged against this standard.
Fail at Ma'at, and priests could act.
Some pharaohs were quietly removed from power. Akhenaten's religious reforms triggered fierce backlash later. So Pharaoh's freedom was tightly, invisibly scripted. The slaves' constraints were visible chains instead. Different cages, both were still cages. By early afternoon, Pharaoh takes a private rest. Servants fan him with ostrich feathers constantly. The slave gets no such afternoon rest. Quarry work continues through the hottest hours. Blocks for temples weighed up to 80 tons. Moving one required dozens of coordinated workers. Wet sand reduced friction under wooden sleds. Physicist experiments in 2014 confirmed this technique. Egyptian art actually depicted this method directly. So the pyramids weren't built by mystery, just organized labor, clever engineering, real sweat. Back at the palace, Pharaoh reviews building projects. His own tomb construction started years earlier. Some pharaohs spent decades preparing their afterlife.
Seti I's tomb alone took over a decade.
Death wasn't feared here, it was rehearsed. Every object buried with him served a purpose. Food, furniture, servants carved from wood, weapons. These Shabti figures were meant to work for him. In death, Pharaoh expected servants, exactly like today. The slaves' burial, if any, held nothing similar. Poor Egyptians were wrapped in simple reed mats, buried shallow, directly in hot desert sand. Ironically, this method preserved bodies naturally. Hot, dry sand mummified them without embalming. Some of the oldest Egyptian mummies are poor laborers. Rich mummification actually risked faster decay sometimes. History has a strange, ironic sense of humor. Let's return to the living hours of each day. Mid-afternoon, Pharaoh receives foreign ambassadors. Gifts arrive from Babylon, Mitanni, distant Nubia. Diplomatic marriages secured alliances across regions. Pharaoh's own harem held foreign princesses too. This wasn't romance, it was political strategy.
Marriage cemented peace treaties between kingdoms. The slave has no say in his relationships. Marriage among slaves still happened, informally. Families could be separated by sale, though. This was the era's harshest, most lasting cruelty. Documents show some slaves eventually adopted into families. Legal adoption could, technically, end enslaved status. Egyptian law here was more flexible than assumed. Not kind, but not always permanent either. Late afternoon, the slave's shift nears its end. Muscles ache. Hands are blistered from rope work. He's allowed a longer break for water now. Overseers ease enforcement as the sun weakens. Records from Deir el-Medina show organized work weeks. 10 days on, 1 day off, roughly. Egyptian workers actually striked when unpaid once. The year 29 strike under Ramses III proves this. Grain payments were late. Workers simply stopped. They marched to temple grounds demanding food. This is the earliest labor strike ever recorded. Egyptian workers had more agency than most assume. Pharaoh, meanwhile, prepares for evening temple rituals. He must personally honor the gods at dusk. This ritual supposedly renewed the sun for tomorrow. Miss this ceremony, Egyptians believed darkness could win. Pharaoh couldn't skip this, ever, not once. His entire life revolved around cosmic responsibility. Even bathroom visits were recorded by officials. Privacy essentially didn't exist for Egyptian royalty. The slave, oddly, had more unwatched moments daily. No one recorded his private thoughts or movements. Anonymity, in a strange way, granted him space. Pharaoh's fame made him a permanent public performance. Every gesture carried symbolic religious weight constantly. He could never simply relax without meaning attached. Evening arrives. Both men eat dinner now. Pharaoh's dinner is a formal, seated banquet. Musicians play harps, dancers perform between courses. Entertainment here served political purpose too. Guests studied his mood for political signals. Nothing about his evening was truly relaxed. The slave's dinner is simpler, communal, honest. Lentil stew, bread, maybe dried fish tonight. Conversation flows freely, no officials watching closely. Workers shared gossip, complaints, jokes about overseers. This social bond mattered enormously for survival. Shared meals built trust among enslaved communities. Even harsh conditions couldn't erase human connection. After dinner, Pharaoh retreats to private chambers finally. Advisors still wait with urgent nighttime reports. Rule never fully paused, even after dark. The slave, finally, lies down on his mat. No reports, no decisions, just exhausted rest. His body aches, but his mind stays quiet. Pharaoh's mind, by contrast, rarely fully rests. Assassination fears haunted many Egyptian rulers historically. Ramesses III was actually murdered in a harem plot.
Modern CT scans in 2012 confirmed his throat wound. Power in Egypt was never fully, safely secure. Every pharaoh slept knowing this grim history. So whose day was actually better, truthfully? It depends entirely on what you value most. Pharaoh had luxury, power, guaranteed historical permanence. He also had zero privacy, constant danger, rigid ritual. The slave had none of that permanence or luxury, but he had community, honest food, occasional rest. He had moments completely free of performance. Neither man chose his role at birth. Egyptian society decided everything before they spoke. Class in Egypt was rigid, but not always eternal. Some slaves rose through skill or adoption legally. Some royals fell through plots or religious conflict. Mobility existed, narrow, rare, but genuinely possible. Let's talk numbers now to understand scale properly. Egypt's population around 1350 BC was roughly 3 million.
Slaves made up an estimated 10 to 20%. That's a smaller fraction than many assume today. Most Egyptians were free farmers, not enslaved workers. Farmers still owed heavy labor taxes to Pharaoh. This corvée labor built most major monuments actually. Free citizens drafted seasonally, not permanent slaves. This system blurred lines between free and unfree. Our slaves' captured status made his case harsher. War captives had fewer legal protections generally. Temple-owned slaves sometimes fared better than private ones. Institutions had reputations, incentives to treat workers decently. Private household slaves depended entirely on individual masters. Treatment varied wildly based purely on personal character. Some documents show slaves testifying in actual courts. Legal personhood existed, even if rights stayed limited. This complicates simple stories about ancient slavery. Reality rarely fits into one clean narrative. Let's check nighttime again, comparing final hours directly. Pharaoh's guards patrol constantly around his sleeping chamber. Dozens of trained soldiers protect just one man. This resource allocation reveals his true value system. One life judged worth an entire protective army. The slave sleeps completely unguarded, genuinely unwatched tonight. No one considers him valuable enough to protect specifically. Yet this neglect grants him unexpected personal freedom. He could theoretically walk away right now. Few actually did. Where would they go? Egypt was surrounded by harsh, unforgiving desert terrain. Escape meant almost certain death from exposure alone. The Nile Valley itself became a natural prison wall. Geography enslaved almost as effectively as any chain. This explains low escape rates throughout Egyptian history. Let's return to Pharaoh's final nighttime thoughts now. He worries about his tomb's completion timeline specifically. Dying before completion meant risking incomplete afterlife. Egyptians believed the afterlife required proper preparation entirely. Anubis would weigh his heart against Mart's feather. Fail this test, and a monster devoured him. Amit consumed hearts that failed this final judgment. This fear motivated Pharaoh's daily religious performance completely. Even ultimate power couldn't escape this cosmic audit. The slave faced this same judgment, interestingly, equally. Egyptian afterlife judged actions, not social status directly. A kind slave could outrank a cruel pharaoh. This belief offered genuine comfort to oppressed workers. Justice, delayed until death, still felt meaningful somehow. Let's examine specific historical figures who lived this. Amenhotep III ruled prosperously for nearly 4 decades. His reign is called Egypt's Golden Age often. Trade flourished, monuments multiplied, wealth accumulated rapidly. Yet his workers still labored under harsh seasonal demands. Prosperity for Pharaoh rarely trickled down completely evenly. Some benefits did reach common workers eventually, though. Grain surplus years meant fuller storehouses for everyone. Bad flood years hurt Pharaoh's treasury too, somewhat. Nature didn't fully respect social hierarchy either. Drought and famine threatened both crown and commoner. Historical records show famine years caused actual social unrest. Even Pharaoh needed cooperation from farmers and workers. Absolute power still depended on functioning food systems. This mutual dependency shaped Egyptian politics constantly. Let's discuss specific tools each person actually used. Pharaoh held a crook and flail as symbols. These represented shepherding and discipline over his people. He rarely used actual tools for physical labor. The slave used copper chisels, wooden mallets daily. Copper tools dulled quickly against Egypt's hard limestone. Workers sharpened tools constantly throughout each working day. This added invisible, exhausting labor beyond the visible work. Quarrying limestone required precise, repetitive striking motions constantly. Workers cut along natural stone fault lines carefully. This technique reduced wasted effort and material significantly. Egyptian engineering knowledge, passed down generationally, was substantial. Skilled workers actually held respected positions within labor gangs. Gang names like Friends of Khufu appeared in records. Workers took genuine pride in group identity and skill. This pride existed despite obviously brutal working conditions. Human dignity persisted, even within an oppressive system. Let's compare their physical health across each lifetime. Pharaoh's remains show evidence of severe arthritis actually. Tutankhamun's mummy revealed a clubfoot condition specifically. Royal inbreeding caused numerous genetic health problems historically. Marrying siblings preserved bloodline purity, worsened health outcomes. Pharaoh's luxury diet also caused unexpected health issues. Excess sugar from dates and honey damaged royal teeth. Studies of royal mummies confirm widespread dental decay. The slave's harder diet actually protected his teeth somewhat. Less sugar meant fewer cavities despite harder physical labor, but his joints suffered from constant repetitive heavy strain. Skeletal studies show quarry workers had damaged spines commonly. Both bodies paid different prices for their different lives. Neither health outcome was clearly, obviously superior overall. Let's discuss children now, since both men likely had some. Pharaoh's children faced intense political pressure from birth. Succession disputes sometimes turned deadly between royal siblings. Being born royal guaranteed nothing except constant danger. The slave's children inherited his enslaved status typically. This intergenerational bondage was arguably the system's cruelest feature. Yet some enslaved children learned valuable trades eventually. Skilled slaves sometimes gained better treatment as adults. A narrow path upward existed, though rarely guaranteed. Let's examine religious participation differences between these two men. Pharaoh performed rituals inside the temple's innermost sanctuary. Only he could enter this most sacred space. Common Egyptians worshipped from temple courtyards, outside walls. They never saw the god statues Pharaoh regularly accessed. This created religious mystery that reinforced Pharaoh's unique authority. The slave's spiritual life happened outside official temple structures entirely. Personal household gods and amulets provided everyday comfort instead. Bes and Taweret protected common households from evil spirits. These gods felt more personal, approachable than distant state deities. Religion offered different comforts depending entirely on social position. Let's discuss actual currency and payment systems used here. Egypt had no coined money during this specific era. Grain, copper, and silver deben measured value instead. Workers received wages in bread, beer, and grain rations. This system required careful, constant record-keeping by scribes. Ostraca, broken pottery pieces, served as everyday receipts. Thousands of these fragments survived, revealing daily economic life. They recorded absences, wages, complaints, everyday human details. This is how we know about the year 29 strike. Broken pottery became accidental historical record for millennia. Let's return to our two men as day fully ends. Pharaoh finally sleeps, guarded, anxious, historically significant. Tomorrow, he'll perform the same rituals again precisely. His life follows an unchanging, sacred, exhausting script. The slave sleeps too, unguarded, anonymous, physically exhausted. Tomorrow, he'll return to the same grinding labor. Neither man controls tomorrow's basic shape or structure. Both lives, despite obvious differences, share this core repetition. So what actually made one life better than the other? Pharaoh had wealth, power, guaranteed historical remembrance forever. He lacked privacy, authentic rest, freedom from constant performance. The slave had none of Pharaoh's wealth or fame. He had honest community, simple food, occasional true rest. He had moments genuinely free from anyone's watching eyes. History remembers Pharaoh's name. It forgot the slaves completely. But memory isn't the same thing as a good life. Fame guaranteed nothing about daily happiness or genuine contentment. Obscurity guaranteed nothing about daily suffering either, necessarily. We simply don't know which man felt more fulfilled. Ancient sources rarely recorded ordinary human emotional experience. We know schedules, diets, tools, but not inner feelings. This gap in the historical record humbles modern assumptions. we project our own values onto people 3 millennia removed. Maybe Pharaoh envied the slave's simple, honest evenings sometimes. Maybe the slave envied Pharaoh's security and guaranteed food. Both men, in their own way, carried real burdens. Both men, in their own way, found brief, genuine relief. This is what makes ancient Egypt endlessly fascinating still. Not just monuments, but millions of individual lived experiences. Every stone at Giza represents someone's actual working day. Every hieroglyph represents scribes recording someone's real decisions. Egypt wasn't just Pharaoh, it was millions of daily lives. Next time you see a pyramid image, remember this scale. Remember the workers' village Mark Lehner actually excavated there. Remember the beer, bread and bandages archaeologists found there. Remember the year 29 strike recorded on broken pottery. Remember both the crown and the chisel, equally, honestly. History remembers names. Archaeology remembers everyone else too. That balance is how we actually understand Egypt fully, not just Pharaoh's golden mask, the hands that shaped it. 2 lives, 1 river, 1 sun, 1 shared history. Thanks for following both journeys through ancient Egypt today.